next guest has sent a letter to the Biden administration asking just how much the border crisis is costing taxpayers, a tab that could run into the billions. New York Congressman John Katko is the ranking Republican on the House Homeland Security Committee and joins me now. Sir, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm curious why you decided to send this letter and if you've heard anything in response so far.
Because I think what this administration is doing at the border is really a kind of a human trafficking shell game, where there's deflection and there's a lack of information and sometimes disinformation to gloss over what's going on at the border. For example, what the reporter was just talking about, the president and the others citing that the facilities have less unaccompanied children in them, there's less overcrowding. It's only because they're throwing people on flights at a rapid pace, 7,200 so far, and probably many more. They're putting people out throughout the country. We don't know who they are, and we don't know where the costs are associated with that. We know the government's probably paying for the flights. They're paying for an extraordinary amount of expenses at these facilities, and we've yet to get a firm number, but I know one thing. It's costing us millions upon millions upon millions of dollars a day to deal with this crisis. Meanwhile, in my hometown and many hometowns across this country, people go to bed hungry every night. And that's not a good thing when American citizens are getting deprioritized over illegal immigrants coming into this country.
Do you anticipate getting a direct response to your letter?
Well, we've had a hard time getting a response from them on such basic things as how many people are in the facilities and whether they're being tested or not, which we know they're not being tested for COVID. So I expect it's going to be like pulling teeth, but we're going to do anything we can to try and get that information, because I think it's important for the American people to know just what the cost is of this crisis at the border.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what the president had to say on addressing the root cause of immigration. Take a listen.
When I was vice president, the president asked me to focus on providing help needed to address the root causes of migration and to help keep people in their own countries instead of being forced to leave. The plan was working, but the last administration decided it was not worth it.
You know as well as I know that the vice president has received a lot of criticism for not personally going down to the border. I know you, among many others, have been down there firsthand to see what's going on, to talk to people down there, to talk to the Border Patrol agents, see what they're dealing with day in and day out. What do you think about this idea of addressing the root cause of migration without physically being there?
Listen, the root cause of migration from Central America and Mexico in particular, but the world in general, is everyone wants to come to the United States. And if we just said the root cause was people want to be here for a better life, then what's the sense of having immigration laws? Of course people want to come here, and of course we want them to come here. But when you ignore the immigration laws we have in this country and just allow people to come in, it's a detriment to everybody. And you know, there's a lot of people all over this world who are waiting the right way to come into this country through visas and visa lotteries and applying for work documentation to come into this country. But if we just sit there and say, look, I know you got a worse life somewhere else, so come on in, that's not how it works. I mean, if you want to go and do what I did back in the day, as a federal organized crime prosecutor, I went to Central America and I went to South America, and I trained their prosecutors on how to fight organized crime. Maybe we should do more of that kind of stuff to help them get a better quality of life there. But in the meantime, we can't just open our borders up and say, come on in because you want a better way of life. No country on earth could handle what we're handling right now at the border.
Yeah. I want to get your reaction to California Congressman Scott Peters. He spoke earlier today on what's happening at the border. Take a listen.
I have to give credit to the Biden administration for urging those asylum seekers and people in transit not to come. If you want asylum, to apply from your own country. Don't make this trip. We've got to take steps to make things better down there. And President Trump had defunded a lot of those efforts.
What is your response?
Well, I think the bottom line is everybody's going to have opinions, but as far as asylum seekers go, it was working. What was happening, the Remain in Mexico policy was working. And I think we can do more to have them apply for asylum at the embassies in the countries they're coming from and have the claims processed. But here's the thing that people got to understand. 90% of asylum claims are ultimately denied. That means 9 out of 10 people that are let into this country for asylum reasons are then subject to deportation if they ever show up for their asylum hearings, which often take many years because the backlog is so great. Yeah. So what we're doing now isn't working, and we got to go back to what we were doing because it was working.
All right. I want to switch topics now and talk about North Korea here for a second, because President Biden's administration has completed its review of the North Korea policy. The White House said on Friday its goal is to remain the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, with the clear understanding that the efforts of the past 4 administrations have not achieved this objective. Now, new today, this is from an official at the North Korea's foreign ministry. They say President Biden's recent speech and newly completed policy review shows he is intent on maintaining a hostile policy toward North Korea. What do you make of that language and that response from North Korea?
Well, quite frankly, first of all, does the actions match the rhetoric? We heard during the inauguration, we heard during his address to Congress that he says one thing. For example, he wants to work with Republicans, which he has not done at all. So if he says he wants to take a tough stand against North Korea, is he really going to do that? Because he hasn't against Iran and he hasn't against China. China's walking all over us with cyber attacks, and he's not doing anything about it. China's killing their people. They're committing a genocide, and he's still going to have the Olympics go there and American athletes. So if he's serious about it, that's a great thing. But he better be serious about it, because a denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula is of paramount importance. And he cited the 4 previous administrations' failures in that regard. He was part of the previous administration. He was at the tip of the spear, and he didn't get it done. And so I think we have to take a tough stance, and I think we need to go let them know that we're not kidding around, and that we need to build a consensus throughout the free world to put pressure on them.
And then before we let you go, I was doing a little research on you today, reading some articles, and I know a lot of people questioning whether you're considering a run for governor of New York. What do you say?
I value my marriage, so not at this time.
Not at this time. All right. Had to ask. It sparked my interest when I was reading.